Hello lovely people, my name is Emma and today I'm bringing you my general classics TBR for 2020. So I have 10 books or categories of books that are within classics that I'd really like to get to over the next calendar year. I did the exact same thing last year and I really enjoyed the process. So some of these I don't own a physical copy of yet, but that's nice because it means I can kind of collect them as we go throughout the year. So the first category as such is I would like to read another French translated classic. So at the moment my two options are either going to be The Three Musketeers by Alexandre Dumas or Les Miserables by Victor Hugo. Now both of these I have read one of their books before. I read The Count of Monte Cristo in 2018, which is Dumas, and I read Hunchback of Notre Dame in 2019, which is Hugo, and enjoyed both of them immensely. In theory I've actually read The Three Musketeers at school when I was about 12 or 13, but I don't know if I actually ever finished it, and I can't remember much beyond the scene where Dante accidentally bumps into each one of the Three Musketeers and challenges them to a duel at the exact same time during the day, very early on in the book. So I think it's time I go back and reread it. Les Mis is also an absolutely iconic classic which has the infamous sewage chapter where Victor Hugo, mid-chase scene, decides to go on a rant about the history of French sewers, which I am really looking forward to getting to. So definitely one of these, maybe even both in 2020. On a similar, I really want to get to a Russian classic of some sort. I had a goal of reading War and Peace in 2019 and that definitely did not happen. I attempted it, got about 100 pages in, and had no idea who anybody was because they all have so many different names. Like, the Russian system of naming things is very confusing right now for my brain, and it wasn't helped by the fact that half the time the Russian characters were referred to by the French versions of whatever their names were. So that was a horrendous nightmare. So instead I have two different options on my shelves for ticking off a Russian classic that isn't quite as scary as War and Peace. First of all, I have Crime and Punishment by Dostoevsky. This is supposed to be a little bit more accessible than War and Peace, even though it is still an absolute chunker of a book. This is a hefty boy. Yeah, I've just heard that Dostoevsky's writing is a little bit easier to get to. The font's also a fraction larger because even though it is chunky, it's nowhere near the unbelievable tome that War and Peace is. So I'm keen on this one. My dad's also a huge fan of Russian literature and has just been pretty much all of his life. So he's given me two books by Turgenev, I think is how you pronounce that. I've got On the Eve and Rudin, I think again that's how you pronounce that. I don't know anything about Turgenev, but they are much shorter, so therefore I'm really excited about this. So I think one of these would be good. Dad says he prefers On the Eve compared to Rudin, but I let him just pick these two out of his collection of Turgenev that he had on his shelves. So yeah, I'm excited about both of them, and the nice thing about all of these books currently is they will also fit in for my translated fiction goals, so that's really nice. I like it when I make books work harder for my goals. I don't know anything about the plots of any of those. I'm assuming Dostoevsky has something to do with crime and punishment given the title, but yeah, I'm not going to look too much into it because I don't want that to sway my judgment this early on in the year. Okay, going back to classic British literature, because I have so many Penguin English Library classics, I would like to, if I can find him in the stack, read a Dickens at some point. The one I have on my shelves is A Tale of Two Cities, and I think I have great expectations on audiobook, but other than A Christmas Carol and maybe the first few chapters of Great Expectations when I was very young at school, I have not really read any Dickens. I really enjoyed A Christmas Carol, we studied it for my GCSEs, but other than that I've not attempted any of the other ones, any of his other kind of back catalogue. This is supposed to be a thrilling historical drama with heartbreaking personal tragedy, and it's set in both Paris and London. So this one currently has the biggest appeal for me. Great Expectations I know is longer, and it's something to do with a character called Pip, who I think comes into money and then has to deal with the fact that he's working class and brought up to the upper middle class and dealing with the whole society thing. It's a commentary on Victorian literature, it's a commentary on Victorian lifestyle that I would really I enjoy that in general, and he's kind of a classic staple that I really would like to read more from, mainly to decide if I want to attempt his whole back catalogue or not. I don't own a copy of this yet, but I really want to get round to reading Little Women. This is one that I have seen in play form again years ago, and obviously the new movie has come out, and it's one that I've been meaning to get round to reading for quite a long time. I don't own a copy of it yet, like I said. I do need to go pick up a nice pretty one, and I think I'm going to go for the UK version. I think that basically there's two versions. One of them is Little Women and the second book, because I think there's 4 of them, but it's the first two shoved together, so it's much bigger. I would quite like to just read the shorter one, see if I like Louise May Alcott's writing style, and if I do, then I can always tackle some of the other ones. So I'd like to take on another few big sci-fi giants and fantasy giants over this year. In 2019 I took on H.G. Wells and Tolkien, to name a few. Jules Verne as well I read a few of. So this year I'd like to read something from Ursula Le Guin. I don't know what. I think I've read an Ursula Le Guin, like a short one, again in school, maybe in year 6. We had to make our own island, and I vaguely remember it being linked to that. So one of those I'd like to read. I'd also really like to read an Octavia Butler. I don't know which one yet. I've not bought either of these, and I'm purposely not making too many strong predictions about which one I want to, like, what of their back catalogue I want to read. But both of them are big female writers in kind of classic sci-fi, and I think that's really important to tick that box, because a lot of what I've been reading at the moment in the sci-fi and fantasy genres in particular have been from male writers, so I'd like to read more female writers. I'd also quite like to get around to a John Wyndham. So I've got two here. I've got The Chrysalids and I've got The Day of the Triffids. Both of these have been on a few TBRs in 2019 and I never quite got there, but this is going to kind of fill a little bit of a gap of some of that kind of H.G. Wells sort of inspired writing. Both of these I think are something to do with plants taking over. I think that's generally John Wyndham's vibe. It's very Little Shop of Horrors from what I gather, and both of them are quite nice and short, so it's nice to mix in with some of these bigger, beefier classics a couple of short ones that would be really good. Again, just sort of picking general sections, I would really like to read another Bronte. I read The Tenant of Wildfell Hall by Anne Bronte in 2019 and absolutely loved it. It's one of my favourite classics books. I've enjoyed the reading experience so much. But Anne Bronte is not obviously the only Bronte out there, and in fact she's the least well known because she does have her sisters Emily and Charlotte, and I do need to read something from either one of them. So I have Jane Eyre on my shelf. It's probably going to be this one of all of them. I'm not psyched by Wuthering Heights. It was on my TBR kind of informally for 2019 and I haven't touched it, so I think I'm going to go for Charlotte next. It will either be Jane Eyre because I have the copy already, or maybe Villette because the Penguin English Library edition is freaking stunning and this is her super hyped one, so I'd be keen to try the slightly less hyped book of the two. But I'm not too sure. Probably going to be this one, to be honest. I think I also have this on audiobook, and if I do, then the chance of me getting to it have just like increased exponentially. I would really like to get to a couple more like classic crime writers out there, and one who is supposed to be the precursor of the modern mystery novel is Wilkie Collins. So this is The Moonstone, but I also have The Woman in White in audiobook form, both of which are considered the precursor to modern mysteries. I don't know which one of them I'm going to read. I know very little about either of them beyond that they are like a mystery of some sort. I read a Wilkie Collins years ago called The Haunted Hotel, which sucked massively, so I'm mildly apprehensive about taking on either one of these two books because they're also both very big, and I'm quite concerned that given how much I dislike The Haunted Hotel, maybe I'm signing myself up for like several hundred pages worth of just sheer drudgery. However, The Haunted Hotel is not his best, and most people agree with that, and both this one, The Moonstone, and The Woman in White are considered like absolute landmarks of the mystery thriller kind of canon of literature, so I'm really excited to try and get to it at some point, and I'm hoping that I can like squash down that apprehension and the excitement's going to win out. And then finally, in terms of sticking with sort of classics within genre fiction, for lack of a better word, I really want to get to some of the absolute classic horror out there. I read Dracula and Frankenstein last year and enjoyed both of them so much, so this year I'm taking on H.P. Lovecraft. This one is At the Mountains of Madness, which I don't think is actually his best, but he invented the modern horror fiction apparently, according to the back of this, so I am keen to get to this one at some point. It is nice and short. It's added to the collection of very, very short classics books that I do have on my shelves at the moment in my to be read pile, so no doubt it will be perfect to slot in for a couple of the big month-long readathons that will be happening in 2020 and I will be taking part in, and my like long books goal will probably go out the window for at least the magical readathon, if not maybe a few more, and this one will definitely come into its own. This is something to do with an expedition to Antarctica that goes horribly wrong as they stumble across some creature in the ice. So yeah, I'm really excited to get to this one. I think I'm really excited to get to all of them. I'm pretty sure I've said that for every single one of these, which is fairly typical, isn't it, of any TBR video. So those are 10 classics books slash authors slash subgenres, I guess, for lack of a better, catchier title for it, that I really want to get to in 2020. I guess I'm kind of unofficially taking part in the classics community challenge that is being hosted by Lucy the Reader. I'll link down below her announcement video and also the Goodreads group. I am in it, but I'm not very active in it, and it's something that this naturally aligns with some of my reading goals anyway, so I have been prioritising classics a lot more. That's pretty much it from me. Where do you think I should start with this? Do let me know if you've read any of these, and if there are any favourites in this list. Have a wonderful reading week, and I'll chat to you soon. Bye!